Welcome to the Anti-Architect Podcast. I am your host, Christian Giordano. As president and owner of the design firm Mancini Duffy, I am driven by a quest for learning and radically changing the industry. With this podcast, I'm hoping to improve the industry that I'm so passionate about by taking a critical look at how architects work through a variety of voices and shared experiences. Leah, Kate, and Sarah, thank you so much for taking the time to be my guest here on the Anti-Architect Podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
I'm excited to have all three of you on. You all have such an interesting and unique approach to your firm. You're 100% women-owned, 100% virtual. You have an affordable housing mission focused called equitable housing at all scales. And I think the best way to kind of start this, because there's obviously three of you on here, is to kind of introduce a little bit about yourselves and what gives you what gave you the passion to go down this path that you're on. And then, of course, we will definitely get into the structure, and I promise we'll also get to talk about the actual projects that you do, which would be great. So, Leah, why don't you go first?
Oh, this is throws me off because usually we start the story with Sarah, since she's the origin of the mission. I started a firm back in 2018 and was doing some really fun, deep green work out in Hawaii and built up a small team. And we had a retreat, it was in 2019, where we came together and were thinking about where we wanted to take the firm in the future. And we had never actually heard of affordable housing. I didn't know what that was. But we recognized that while we loved housing, and working for someone with a means to develop this type of site was really cool, it didn't feel like we were serving our communities in the way that we wanted to. And through sort of happenstance, I'm sure we'll get into the details of this story, I connected with Sarah and the firm that she worked at and learned of affordable housing. And everyone on our team was like, oh, this is what we really want to do. This marries our love for designing homes and then serving the communities that truly deserve and need great design. And so that's how I got into it, which is fairly recently, although I've been designing housing since the beginning of my career. It's what I love to do.
Kate, why don't you go next?
Yeah, absolutely. I started my career in affordable housing, working for a firm down in Southern California, where I'm from. And then I, took many different paths, worked on residence halls at universities for quite a while, at a firm with Sarah. And then I went on to work for very fancy architects and do very fancy buildings. And in the back of my mind, I was always looking at the budgets of these buildings and just going, do you know how many families you could house for the budget of this? The answer would be hundreds. And so I think that kind of benchmark for, think of the number of households that this built budget could serve was always in the back of my mind. And so when Sarah started to work in affordable housing again, it kind of reignited that spark in me of seeing her go through that transition. I was like, yeah, that's why we should be doing this. That's why we should be working 60-hour weeks, is to do that, not this. And so I think that, for me, it was kind of a return to how I started more than anything else.
Nice. Sarah?
Sure. Yeah, I'll fill in. As an architect, I feel like I'm one of the lucky few that fell in love with this idea very early on in like junior high, but for like the wrong reasons. Like I liked math. People like, oh, you should be an architect. We don't use a lot of math.
I say this,
but I got my eyes set on that and went down the path. And I feel very lucky that what the practice of architecture actually has become for me is very much what I love to do and aligned with my skill sets. And so I'm very grateful to have fallen into this profession and for it to be the right thing. My first foray into the profession was focused on educational environments, so public schools and other learning environments. I loved that field. Grew a lot during that time in my career, but as you noted in my intro, right before the pandemic, I was having my second child and just really thinking about how do I align what I do day in, day out with what I feel called to do to serve my community. And that led me down the path of housing and homelessness, and just went through a big deep dive of learning about the issues, the solutions, and how an architect could plug into their skill set into that. And so that led me to affordable housing most directly, although we do practice addressing the housing crisis at all scales, so providing all different types of housing solutions. I was lucky enough to find OJK Architecture and Planning, based in San Jose, which was a commutable distance for me at the time. There were a lot of firms I really wanted to work for, but they were just too far away. So I joined our founder, Jerry King, in 2019, studied under him and learned a lot about the housing world. Then the pandemic hit, and Jerry decided pretty quickly that remote work was not going to be a long-term solution for him. And so we started into the conversations about taking over the firm. During that time, we were in over our heads. We had so much work to do and not enough team members. And so that's when I met Leah and her team with Evia, and we decided to partner to get OJK up and running as a remote practice and push support into our projects at the time. When I met Leah, I discovered she is a unicorn in the architectural world, that she cares about operations and business and her team. And I was like, you are a person I could run a firm with. So we were having those conversations. And as Kate mentioned, she and I have been friends for a very, very long time. And she was also like ready for a career shift. And she said, if you're doing this, I want in. And so the three of us came in together to take over leadership of the firm. And we are on that journey right now, and it's an exciting one, that's for sure.
Amazing. Kate, something that you said reminded me of a conversation I had with one of our lead designers, really one of our design director. We were working on a project for a brand new out of the ground tower in New York City, but it was to be all storage. So all for storage stuff. And it's a 35-story building. It's actually beautiful. The building, I mean, he did an amazing job, but he did point out to me, and I never thought of it this way, and it really kind of reset some of my thinking behind, listen, you own the business, someone's going to pay you to design something, you want to keep everybody employed, so you think, all right, well, and it's a tower, this could be cool. Well, who cares that it's storage? His thing to me was, I can't believe we're spending this much money to design this space for people's extra stuff, and I was like, yeah, you know what? I never thought of it that way. Shame on me. There could have been so many other good uses for this particular site. And so that just reminded me of kind of the greater mission of what we do, and that there is something beyond just doing whatever the project is set in front of you. So yeah, thank you for reminding me of that.
Yeah, and not only the land, not only the budget, your time and your expertise. And
Right.
this is something that Sarah says all the time. We get asked, like, what's your advice for young architects? And it's like, think about what's really worth your time and expertise. Like, is this what you want to be doing with all of these skills that you have worked so hard to build and spent so much time to hone? And I think that we find, even with architects coming up behind us, that mission alignment is more and more and more important to them with every new hire we make. And I think that, not to say that every firm should do affordable housing, but every person at every firm should be doing something that they feel is worthy of their time and expertise, whatever that is for them.
I do find in the younger generation that the purpose behind the work is important. There seemed to be a gap. Maybe that's probably in mine, the Gen X generation, right, where the purpose didn't matter as much as the just doing, right? And it is interesting that the younger generation, I see that with my kids too. Like, well, why? Why are we doing that? And they're always asking that why question. And I don't know, it's interesting to see kind of where that'll evolve and how that'll change our industry beyond even just the technology and things that we'll talk about. So, but that's a perfect transition to, we'll figure out how we're going to do this. If you had to pick one thing, what annoys you most about architects? So, Sarah, I'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, I think my response is a good segue from that conversation we are just having. I wrote down what annoys me about architects is when they practice for the prestige versus focusing on how to best serve our end users and our communities. We often say that Architects FORA, we are an egoless architecture firm. We're not here to promote ourselves. We're here to solve problems, to collaborate, to focus on how to best serve our future residents. And so that's what annoys me about
Nice.
other architects.
Nice. Kate?
Mine's pretty similar. It's like a little different, I guess. It's the prestige, yes, but to me, it's architects who are so focused on like the trappings of being an architect. Like they're wearing the little Le Corbusier glasses and they've got the little sketchbook tucked in the back of their pants, and you know they're like sketching moodily in meetings, and it's like, what's your point of view? Like, what are you bringing to the world? Not, and it's. I used to work for a wonderful architect named David Kesterson who just passed away, and he always used to call those kinds of architects who were more like obsessed with the title, from being from the George Costanza School of Architecture, because in Seinfeld he had his like made up architecture job, like people who just want to be able to like say they're an architect because that sounds cool without having a really deep conviction about what that job means, because we make very permanent, indelible impacts on the environment of not only us, but everyone around us. And if you're just like in this because it kind of sounds cool to say you're an architect, like that's a lot of responsibility. And so I always find myself attracted to architects who you can tell exactly why they're in this.
Right.
And they have a very specific point of view, set of values, set of priorities that they feel like they can contribute to our field and to the built environment and ultimately to the city that a lot of people are living in.
Yeah. Leah?
How do I do one thing? I mean, literally, I started a firm because of all the things that annoy me about what architects do and how they run a business. I think I'll pick one thing that has lots of tendrils, and it's how architects tend to feel what they do is so precious. And that causes so many problems. It creates sort of this like exclusionary culture that we have seen in architecture for a very long time, which means that we have this very old profession. And so we're losing a lot of younger generations, especially the Gen Zs and Gen Alphas that are coming in with a very different mindset and not jiving well with people who are like, no, this is how we do it. And this is why we do it. And it prevents people from, I think, really growing and evolving over time as well. You know, they hold fast to like, this is my skill set. This is what I've learned. This is like, I am the architect. I know the right way to do things. And that leaves us vulnerable to other industries that do adapt and do take advantage of technology and are investing in research and are bringing up their younger generations into leadership roles earlier and often. And I think that's causing like one of the most major issues in our profession right now. So I kind of cheated because that's a lot of things wrapped up into one thing. I could go on this tangent forever.
So we've done, as a profession, we've given away so many little bits and pieces of our profession, right? Where we used to, I don't want to say control, but we used to be able to speak to so many different aspects of the profession, and we've given a lot of that away. And I do worry that we end up giving a lot more of it away ultimately. And who's going to stop? WeWork was ultimately trying to do this. WeWork was trying to be their own architect, develop their own products, their own furniture, their own carpet, their own whatever. Didn't work, obviously, but someone may try to figure that out. There's nothing that could say that Amazon isn't going to come in and, commodify architecture and design or housing specifically. I think you could get in. I see all these 3D printed houses and all this stuff, and it's like, well, that doesn't make a house. That is just I'm confused. Why is this special? That kind of thing. So, yeah, we do need to be careful about that and make sure that we're kind of taking all that back with us.
Or taking different parts.
Yes.
Like maybe we gave those away, but what we found is like, I don't think we need to claw back what we've given away, to use your terminology, but find new places we can be influential and new places that we can bring our expertise to bear in a way that's of benefit to not only the project and our clients, but for us, the wider community.
Mm-hmm. I think this speaks to where we're headed in this new technological era, where a lot of what we have done and where we've earned, fee is not where our true value lies. And so thinking about what's going to be automated, what things can be taken over by their technology or other professions, and where do we, as Kate said, where do we truly provide value where we haven't thought of before? And that's how we got into doing community engagement work. And that's something that architects truly should be doing and are really well suited to do. And there are some firms that are, but the majority are not. And we've found it extremely valuable to our clients, to the community, and to our own work. So looking for things like that is going to be really important moving forward.
Yeah. So in our profession too, we are notorious for being, overworked and underpaid. Is that something that you all think we bring on ourselves, or is there a larger issue here? And I know your firm, you're beginning to kind of rethink that. We'll talk about that afterward. But is it something that we bring on our own? Is it just sort of that old generation that this is how it was and this is how it has to be? Anyone can answer.
We have so many answers to this question.
Yeah.
I can start and you guys jump off. So for us, I think that all three of us, a lot of what we do at FORA is a reaction to the way we were expected to work before. And I think all three of us have had the experience of you're kind of tootling along, having a pretty light day, and your boss comes back from being out from a day full of meetings at 5 p.m. and dumps a pile of work on your desk that's due the next day. So we're not working long hours because we're working a hard 12, 14-hour day. We're working long hours because we start an 8-hour day at 5 p.m. And so I think the beauty of the way that FORA is set up is that our work and our tasks are much more asynchronous because we are set up remotely. So there's not that like waiting for someone to physically come back from a meeting and be in the office with you to give you your tasks. We can be out on site at 10 a.m., Slack somebody, hey, I need a little fit study for blah, blah, blah. And they have it ready because they're working on that asynchronously in the background. So I think that our tools, because we're a remote firm, also work well for our team to be able to take more ownership of the way that they're spending their time each day. And then, that also expands to the other benefits of remote work that I'm sure Sarah and Leah will get into. But I think for us, like, it is that rigid setup of a in-person practice that causes those long hours. Personally, we also are very rigidly committed to 40-hour weeks for our team, and that is purely a math and staffing problem. It is not a hard nut to crack. Like,
Right.
You just have to do the math and commit to it, which can be difficult at times, but it's a commitment that you make as a leadership team.
Yeah. Fair.
Yeah, I think adding on to that, one of our core values is allowing our team to have a really balanced and high quality of life so that they have the bandwidth to be passionate and effective at what we do as architects. And so in order to realize that value, we as leadership need to build in enough redundancy on our team so that there's push and pull when life events come up, and there are other team members that know what's going on and can fill in. Also, as Kate said, it's a staffing math problem, just making sure you have enough bandwidth assigned to a project workload. And it's not a foolproof model yet. Oftentimes it means that if something comes up late in the game, or if there's a life event that a team member needs to step away, a lot of it will land on the three of us as leadership. But we do feel like that's what we signed up for, and that's what we are. We just care enough to carry that burden, and that's okay too. I think we'll keep iterating on how to create enough redundancy that doesn't all land on us. But I will say that finding that balance of quality of life for our team, flexibility and redundancy amongst our team allows all of us to have a really balanced live work life experience.
To go back sort of into the why this is the way it is in architecture, I do think it's a combination of things. As Sarah said, we are passionate about what we do. We love what we do. And when you are passionate, you tend to invest above and beyond because you care. And I think that that's valuable and important as long as you're balancing that with periods of rest when you don't need to go that hard. And then on the other hand, there is sort of this expectation from the older generations that your life is architecture, that you like serve the firm, you're always available and you're going to get the work done. And they aren't very mindful about, what those hours are. And so there are people on the team that aren't maybe as passionate about what they're doing, but they're working those, 60, 70, 80-hour weeks because that's what's expected of them. So it's difficult. I'm a little radical in the way that I think that we should be doing things. And I think even for the three of us, when we have conversations about doing things differently, we come across these periods of needing to break free from what we've experienced. Mm-hmm. And that's a hard thing to do. Like, you think that you've had to deal with something. That's how other generations should also deal with things because it's only fair to your past self. And that's not what we need to do. We should be like breaking the chain of trauma and building better practices for future generations. And there are many ways to do that. I also don't think this is an architecture issue, that like 9 to 5, 40-hour work week is from a very different era. And it is not aligned with creative service work at all, but we've just been following this path that was laid out for all of us as working class from 100 years ago. And we're seeing that challenged all over the place, and it's working well. To Sarah's point, having people that are well rested means that they do much more impactful and efficient work when they're working. And we would rather have that. I worked at a very large firm, I will not say where a good chunk of people had like a couple hours that they were staffed to when we were doing staffing plans, and then other team members that were much more heavily loaded and in demand. And we have this wonderful benefit that we hire from all over the place, and we have amazing team members that do great work. And we have expectations of the quality of work that they're going to produce. And in turn, we give them the quality of life that allows them to do that. So we don't have that sort of wasteful team member sitting on our team that maybe causes those issues with your staffing problems. But I think, like, again, that's a staffing problem. That's a leadership problem. That's maybe a training problem. There are a lot of ways to resolve this. So yeah, there are systemic issues, there's personal issues, there's passion issues, but there's definitely a better balance we can all find.
Well, I want to get into the structure of your firm, right? And I kind of broke it into two different buckets, right? The quality of life and then the salary side of things, because both are really fascinating to me. So, you're 100% virtual, so staff can work remotely from anywhere with a reliable internet. I did like that part. Flexible schedules, as long as the project meetings are covered. The 80-hour in 2-week model basically gives the freedom of the individual to structure their time. Staffing is intentionally capped at 40 hours a week, right, with a max of 40. And then up to 8 hours a week for research or something else, right? That's part of an employee's passion base. And we'll get into the salary part in a minute. But talk a little bit about how this works. The 100% remote. How do you go to sites? Can I be in Guam? Does that matter? I use Guam like anyone.
Totally normal example.
Just explain a little bit about how this works. Because again, I'm fascinated by this. I do think COVID has brought us into this age. I will be completely transparent. We are fighting that at our firm, even though we were super flexible before COVID.
Mm-hmm.
It hasn't changed much for us, yet we fight this sort of in-office thing, and we have this in-office policy and out-of-office policy. And I used to just say, I didn't really care how many hours you worked or when you worked, because as long as you got your work done, who gave a shit if if the product was awesome and you were awesome, great.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter if you're sitting in a chair in our office or somewhere else. So anyway, like, whoever wants to take this one on in terms of how this actually works.
I can answer the spread of working in Guam, and maybe Kate, you can take site, or Sarah.
Sure.
You can absolutely work from Guam if you want to. I think at one point had a team member in Spain and New Zealand and Japan all at the same time, and we made that work. So our team members not only work from anywhere around the country from like a home base, but they also travel and work while they travel. And, again, an internet and being able to adapt your time zone to make sure that you can join team meetings within reason. We don't want people up at like 3 a.m. working with us. It's all doable. It's, as we've seen during COVID, it really doesn't matter where people are. They can get their work done as long as you have the right systems and you have the right attitude towards like access and communication. But we do need to be in person, and we do get together in person and on our sites. So,
yeah, I'll talk about sites. So, I am, of the three of us, the most kind of construction document and construction administration oriented person. And I live in Colorado, and most of our job sites that are active, actually, I think all of them right now are in California. So I travel out once a month. Our team members who need to be on site travel out, whatever cadence we establish. We'll often trade off with another team member. So that's part of that redundancy that Sarah talks about. We try not to ever have just one person doing construction administration. You need to have multiple people know what's going on site, because if something happens to me, we have another team member who was there 2 weeks ago and she can step in. So, for us, our office expenses are travel expenses. That's the trade-off that we made. And we have found that, like many of our business practices, allowing people to live where they want to live, in the case of many of our team members, it's living near their family, has kept us with a very happy team and a very stable team. People don't quit FORA. And that's a huge benefit to us, and it's a huge benefit to our clients who have this really steady, stable team. We've had the same project team on our project that's about to get TCO in Palo Alto the entire time.
Wow.
Like a 5-year project, almost 5-year project. And that benefit to the clients, that knowledge base stays with us and we're not constantly retraining people who are quitting because of the churn, is huge. And so, do we trade having to go on a flight once a month for that benefit? Absolutely. All day.
Yeah.
Like, I would so much rather have someone fly once a month than have them commute 2 hours to San Francisco and back every day.
And the reality is, like, multi-office global firms travel all the time. I mean, and you had that experience, Kate. You were traveling even when you had an in-person.
I sure was. And a lot further than Colorado to California.
Yeah, and I mean, to speak to 2 points, that we deeply value in-person time. There's nothing that can replace it. We're not saying that that's not important. We just want to make the most of that time when we do it. And so, traveling to site, flying a team member across the country to come to site every quarter so she can learn all that you learn on a construction job site, so valuable. Flying our whole team to be here once a year for our annual retreat, where we spend a few days together visiting all of our job sites, visiting with our clients and our partners to just build those relationships in person, to build our team's relationships together. Invaluable. So we definitely prioritize those things. We just do them thoughtfully. And then to speak to
is that how the
other,
culture is built, by the way? Is that you buy those in-person things and then there's that familiarity?
that's one of the ways. We also all meet up at conferences very regularly in person. If there's a project team meeting, like a big workshop where we're setting goals for the project, we all get together in person. So there's a lot of team building that does happen at those in-person intervals. We also have a number of strategies when we're not all together in person. We can talk about those in a minute.
Sure.
I just wanted to touch on, a lot of people talk about the geographical spread of a flexible work environment, but I just want to talk about the schedule flexibility. That for me, I am based closer to our projects, so the travel is more traditional, I should say. But But the schedule flexibility, I have two elementary school age children. They are at an age where they don't need a babysitter all the time after school. So if I can flex my hours to the early morning and while they're at school and then be with them in the afternoon, that is such a blessing to my family. It gives me the quality of life of being a mom and a professional. And a lot of our teams have different variations of that storyline. So the schedule flexibility and having a system set up that allows for that there is asynchronous communications. There can be downtimes where I'm blocked out in the afternoon. It's a game changer. I would not be doing this if it weren't for that level of flexibility. Yeah. I can say that confidently.
That's like really the entire reason why I started a virtual practice in the first place. I was heavily involved in my local women in architecture group in Silicon Valley, and there were just so many stories about parents, but also like caregivers of other family members, or people just had other things going on in life and being pushed out of the industry, out of opportunity, and treated poorly for taking care of their families. And I was at the age where I knew I was about to start a family of my own and didn't want to be trapped in that mess, nor did I want to be stuck in the Bay Area with a child. So having the flexibility to move and to accommodate different phases and changes in life, and things change. So not locking into the same schedule that you have today that you might have in a year, you can adapt that as you need to over time, is super important. To the point of like team building, you do not need to do that in person. It helps. It's a different side of things. But when Sarah and I connected, when she was working for OJK and we partnered together, she was working and basically leading my team on a project completely virtually. We had never met. She had never met my team. And after a short period of time, she shared with me that she felt much closer to me and my team than she felt with people physically present in her office working here before COVID. And that's because we are intentional about sharing who we are. We are curious about who our team members are personally. We have those like moments that we build in to learn more about each other and to share things more authentically, like when things are going well, when we have challenges, creating space for people to feel comfortable and vulnerable. You can do that virtually too. So it, as we said, it's important to be in person, but you don't need to treat people like strangers just because you don't see them like face to face.
How do you do those cultural things more remotely?
Yeah, at the beginning of we have a team meeting every week, and the whole first chunk of it is our feel good opener, which is a holdover from the EVIA days. And whoever's leading the meeting, we rotate who leads the meetings, just has like a question that everyone answers, and it sparks such rich conversations and helps people find so much overlap between their like hobbies or what they're into, or like, the question can be anything, but I know so much more about every single member of our team than any other coworker I've ever had, because there is built-in time for us to be curious about each other and learn about each other. It's like, and then, we do like Secret Santa as part of our holiday party, and it's so easy to shop for people because all of everything about them. You're like, oh, I got, Teddy, I'm going to get her a plant thing because she's a plant mom, and she always talks about how she's like, watering her plants or whatever. So, it's I think that recognizing that as valuable time rather than like, oh, huff, I have to do an icebreaker. This is such a drag. I could be doing other things. It's like, no, that's like the most important part of this meeting, actually. Like, we could probably do the rest of the meeting agenda like asynchronously. That's the meat, is the team building time.
I think.
Oh, sorry.
I think a lot of people, when they think about team building, think about like formal activities and exercises, and those are part of it. But it's also just like the millions of little things that you do, the way that you speak to each other, the sort of access to connecting, and we communicate in Slack, because we've mentioned we have a bunch of channels for projects. We have channels that are official for work. We have a ton of channels for just like fun stuff, posting pictures of gifts of cats, or like sharing pictures of your recent vacation, encouraging people to talk about taking time off and then sharing what they did during their time off so that people take time off and it's not taboo, but they also share what they're doing and we can feel enriched by those personal adventures that people are going on. So it's really truly like being thoughtful about building that into every interaction that you have with your team and the systems that you set up to do that.
And so how does the 40-hour a week work? Like, what happens if I'm not finished with that reflected ceiling plan? How does all of that kind of go together?
Yeah, that's the beauty of the flex time is say you do have a week where you're crunched and you worked a 45-hour week, you work a 35-hour week the next. So that's the 80 hours in 2 weeks is we expect you to flex and pull. And we expect you to be transparent about the fact that you're doing that. We have, to Leah's point about Slack channels, we have a studio staffing channel where our team keeps us updated on how their time spent is comparing against their time that they were staffed for so that we're all aware of what's going on. And they usually come up to us proactively with a plan like, hey, I'm going to pull 5 hours from this specialty project next week to help me this week and I'll make it up this way. Da, da, da. Like I said, the amount of ownership our team has taken over their time and their understanding of the impact on projects and on the firm as a whole is another thing that I have not experienced at any other practice. And it's because that information was withheld from us. So I hope that we have empowered our team to have the understanding of how time works, so that they feel like they have really facile ability to manage it for themselves and communicate with us what's going on.
We also lean really heavily on our calendars. Like if you are going to work your 40 hours this week in Monday through Thursday and take most of Friday off, like block that on your calendar. We also have like signature tags on our emails saying like, we have a flexible work environment. I'll, if I'm out on Friday, I will get back to you on Monday, kind of covering the basis. So we're transparent about that to our clients and partners as well. It also just requires a lot of communication. We've created a culture around that. Like, hey, this RCP assignment you gave me is going to take me 50 hours. There's no way I'm getting it done this week. How should we address that? We can either then pull in more team members to help or, oh, that's fine. It can take till next week. Like just creating a culture where we're really transparent about between leadership and team members producing things so that everybody's on the same page and has the same expectations. There's a lot of levers you can pull to make things feasible and not require crazy overtime.
That's exactly it, Sarah. Because, staffing is not a science. Some things take a lot longer than you realize once you get into it. And we need people to share that with us. If a team member pulls an all-nighter on our practice, they're in trouble. Like that's not a good thing. That's an issue. And we have conversations, like a reprimand conversation about pulling an all-nighter. We don't want our team members to work that far above and beyond or to be pressured into a situation where they have to work that much last minute. We should have had conversations much earlier on about their workload. And it takes a little time for people to adapt to that because it's not normal. And so, it's this long onboarding process to break people down and say, no, really, like overshare with us what's going on with you. And we will tell you when it's too much communication. And it's never too much communication.
Yeah, I think we've had one team member who overdid. We're like, okay, we don't need to know if it's deviating by like half an hour.
So talk to me a little bit about the salary structure. So I wrote down here, you have 3 levels of salary. They're all aligned or above the A national, averages. And that everybody kind of knows those buckets that their salary is in. Excuse me. And, it's funny. We talk about this in our office. Everyone can figure out what everybody else makes just by going by their billable rate and things like that. But it's always hush hush and all that kind of silliness. So then how does this work for you? And this, I'm really fascinated. This is where I'm going to take notes.
I had a crazy idea. And I said to Sarah and Kate, I think we should pay everybody the same amount. And they're like, that's not going to happen. That's crazy. But my reason for coming about it is recognizing that everybody on your team is providing value. And it's different for different experience levels and for different sort of like expertise and just how people work. But the expectation is that everyone provides their best value that they can bring to the table. And that we would recognize that and reward that with just like a really great base livable salary. And anything above and beyond that, we would bonus with additional sort of performance scorecard, which we do have. And through the wise advice of my business partners, we recognize that there is additional sort of responsibility that you take on at different leadership levels. And that does mean something, and that's deserving of additional compensation. So we came up with a structure that essentially is, you start with this base salary that everybody earns when they come into the practice. And we have very clear leadership tiers with the staff member, associate, senior associate, and principal. Each one of those has a set spread. Right now, it's a $10,000 difference between each one. So it's just very clear what they are. It's like 80, 90, 100, right? So there's no guess. You know what you earn now. You know if you make it to this next leadership level, you'll earn $10,000 more a year than you're currently earning. And that's supported by a very robust framework that we put together with our team to evaluate performance. They came up with the categories. They came up with the individual items that we should be scoring people against. It's varied so that if somebody is really great with like technical expertise, but they're maybe not necessarily great at project management, they can still earn enough points to be recognized at a higher leadership level if they're doing really great work at what they're doing. So that's used both for sort of that leadership elevation as well as bonuses at the end of the year. And that's direct response to a couple of things. One, we know there's an issue with discrepancies in pay and genders, also racially. There's no reason for this. And I'm really excited to see that firms are doing audits and they're making changes. But we don't even need to keep those salaries secret. Like, there's no reason why other professions have to publish transparently their salaries, right? Like, my husband is, he works for government. Everything is there. And when you do, then you don't feel this competition and spitefulness or like worry about your own stability relative to someone else. It's all understood. And then the reason for the very clear criteria is we've heard many times, especially there was a talk at a women's leadership summit by a panel of like Black women who said that their experience in trying to elevate leadership was that the goalposts just kept moving, right? They would ask what they needed to do. They would do that. And then leadership would go, well, actually, we need you to now do X, Y, and Z, and continuing to move that out. So providing a really clear, robust framework that doesn't change, that people understand what they need to do to get there was really important for us to provide those leadership opportunities to our team members.
That's great. And so, by the way, what does Architects FORA mean?
We had a lot of fun and a lot of strife trying to figure out what to rebrand ourselves. We were OJK Architecture and Planning for 40 plus years. We wanted to rebrand to reflect who we are as the new chapter of leadership and where we are headed. And so we went through a lot of different iterations. FORA ultimately became the top choice for a number of reasons. One, it feels forward thinking, which is one of our core tenets. It's not an acronym. It's actually more of a beginning of a mission statement. We are Architects FORA, or Engage FORA for our engagement branch, for a robust, for a collaborative process, for a resilient future, for housing for all. There's a few other taglines I always forget, but basically the beginning of our mission statement is what Architects FORA means.
Yeah, it's great. I really love the way that it's not an acronym, that you're sort of announcing the next thing that you're doing with it. It's pretty special. So I'd love to jump into the projects here, and we're going to bring them up here. I have three of them kind of queued up: El Camino, Lee Avenue Senior Apartments, and Solera Apartments. Maybe we can.
Good choices.
You guys see them?
Christian, do you mind if we start with Solera? I have an interview at 11, so I'm going to have to sign off a few minutes
Yeah.
early. And Solera's was my baby.
That's awesome. So yeah, absolutely.
Thank
you. So let's talk about Solera. Why don't you give us a little overview of it? It's a really cool looking project.
Awesome. Thanks, Christian. Appreciate that. Solera is a really special project for a variety of reasons. One, it was our first project that we took over as the three of us as the new leadership of this firm. It was in the early stages of design when we took over leadership. This is my first multifamily housing project, so a lot of lessons learned through the process of designing and constructing it. It's also our first project with one of our most treasured partners, Eden Housing. It's located in downtown San Jose, right near the 280 and 87 interchange, just blocks away from public transit downtown. So it's part of the urban village of San Jose. So building out to the edges of the property lines is a key design feature. This project is 130 units. 50% of them are set aside for residents transitioning out of homelessness, and we call that permanent supportive housing. What that includes is on-site case management, resident services that provide wraparound services to these residents transitioning out of homelessness, a variety of health support, employee training opportunities, financial assistance, and just helping them transition into a new daily life routine of living in a home again. And so within the design of this project, it's an odd-shaped building. It's an odd-shaped conglomeration of units. And so we really wanted to make wayfinding as clear as possible. In addition, during construction, we became aware of a growing body of research called trauma-informed design, which is an outcropping of trauma-informed care principles. And so because this project is supporting such a high percentage of residents transitioning out of homelessness, we wanted to make sure we made the spaces support their transition and provide a sense of safety, comfort, and connection to reduce any negative impacts in the built environment around them, especially in something as personal as your home. And so things like visual transparency to see ahead of yourself before you enter a space is really important. So as you can see, our lobby frontage here, it's very clear. You can see into the lobby, into the community room, into the staff offices before you enter. Same with the staircases. You can see into and out of the stairs before you enter them. There's a courtyard in the center of the building. That's the daylight beacon and wayfinding tool. At the corners, there's glazing so you can see around the corners. Again, just a lot of ways to see ahead of yourself. We provided 2 laundry rooms so that people can choose whichever laundry room they best maybe isn't as busy or doesn't have somebody that they don't want to interact with in. So just providing a level of choice is a trauma-informed care tenant. And then a lot of views to nature. And so we have these beautiful murals that reflect native flora and fauna, the lovely outdoor space, the courtyard, just giving people a lot of quick and easy ways to get to nature. Again, is another trauma-informed design principle.
Beautiful.
With that, I'll pass it off to talk about the other projects.
Yeah, El Camino. This one is another use of a very awkward site. This is 27 units, 3 stories. It's right along El Camino Real. For those who know, sorry, excuse me. For those who know the San Francisco Peninsula, it's kind of the main spine that runs up and down. So highly visible to all of the neighbors. This project is LEED Platinum, has a lot of really wonderful green interventions. We have a client that was a long-term client of OJK who really pushed the envelope in sustainability on projects with Jerry and then with us. And so it was great to be able to show off how, even though, affordable housing can have this reputation for being, low quality or cheap, they're actually incredibly intensively designed buildings. They have a lot more sort of high design requirements put on them than market rate housing. And I think that this project is a great example of that. Yeah. So lots of all of the residents at this project are of the IDD community. They have intellectual developmental disabilities. And one of the really beautiful follow-ups from this project is that when we got a new project in Palo Alto that was going to have 50% of units set aside for folks with intellectual developmental disabilities, that's really the project that we launched our community engagement practice on. And so many of the residents from 1585 Studios, which is what this project is, helped us with our community engagement. They gave us their time, they gave us their expertise, they gave us their lived experience so that we could make the next project for folks from the IDD community even better. Even
Wow.
better suited to their needs. So I feel like I know so many of the residents of this building because of that experience, that it's a really special one for me just because they have been so giving of their, honestly, expertise. There's really no other way to describe it.
Yeah, very rarely do you do you get to actually interact with the residents that are occupying, the buildings that you've done afterward.
Mhm.
I can't imagine any of the buildings we've done that I actually have interacted with the residents. You were usually long gone at that point. So fascinating. I love it. And then let's do the last one here, which is this one's senior housing, correct?
Yes, it is. Yeah. So
Speaking
this,
of,
go ahead, Leah.
I was going to say, speaking of interacting with the residents, after you talk about the
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So this is another, it was that same client who really pushed the boundaries on sustainability. And this is another LEED Platinum building that we did with them, First Community Housing. You can see it here in this photo. We've got solar hot water, we've got photovoltaics, we've got green roof, we've got tuck under parking so that we have as little kind of exposed hot black asphalt surface area as possible. This project was unitized floor and wall cassettes framing that were craned into place. So it was framed up very quickly. So really innovative construction techniques helped this one be built fairly quickly. And I think, for me, the special piece of this project really is these kind of units facing outward toward a very busy intersection, but also the units that face in toward the courtyard with these balconies that really, it makes it feel like a very communal space when you're sitting out kind of on this podium top courtyard. Everybody's got dogs, and there's certain times of day where it kind of becomes like the twilight bark in there. But it feels like community in this building. But yeah, I think you want to talk about our engagement on this one too. So
Yeah, Kate, was this the first one that was finished construction when we took over?
yes, yeah.
Okay. So this was, designed before us, and Kate was leading the construction administration when we took over OJK, which is now FORA. And part of what we've been doing with this practice is thinking about how we can serve our clients and our communities beyond just sort of basic services. And we got excited about the idea of post-occupancy evaluations and put together a plan for us to conduct a post-occupancy evaluation on this project to learn more about this project type, because we had a team that was fairly new to this, to better understand the buildings in our portfolio, and to sort of set a precedent of coming full circle with our design process, with this pre-engagement, community engagement, design, and then following up afterwards to see if what we've designed is really serving the community the way that we intended, and how we can, as Kate mentioned from 1585, improve upon on the next. So we invested fairly heavily in designing a POE process and learned a lot as our first. It was very robust. We were not compensated for this. We decided to invest as an internal project for our own learning purpose, and partnered with the client and with resident services and conducted a survey, and then went door to door, a follow-up event, thanking the residents for their time, and just learned a lot of really wonderful insights through that process. And it was so enriching for us, and so many great takeaways for the client, for sort of immediate interventions and maybe sort of mid-level major renovation time opportunities that they could make some adjustments, and then just what to learn for the next development, that we decided that we really want to do this on all of our projects. So we've been gearing up and adapting that process for the next. We, on another project, had done another community engagement event afterwards. We've done site walks. Solera had a joint site walk that we did. And we are putting together now, actually, our first proposal for a paid post-occupancy evaluation on a project that we recently completed. So turning this into a recognized valuable service, not only for us, but for our clients. So this was an exciting launch into that process.
Very nice. You guys do absolutely beautiful work. So as we kind of come to the end here, where do you see AI?
That's a Leah question.
Pushing into the, where do you see it in how you may use it, or how it may benefit, as a tool, our profession?
I think AI is exciting. It's actually been around for quite some time, but in its current mode, people have a lot of feelings about it. But it's just like any other technological revolution, and it is a tool that we need to learn how to leverage and understand, not just how to use these tools that are coming out on a day-to-day basis to keep doing the work that we're doing, but how can we leverage this technology to rethink how we practice and to invest more in our true value. And so what I am excited about with AI is not that I'm not afraid that it's going to take away jobs, right? I think that it's going to take away the parts of our jobs that we really don't need to be doing, so we can invest in those higher value, more human aspects of how we work that can't be replaced by AI. I'm also really excited about the potential for it to unlock this like traditional pyramid hierarchical structure where you have to have certain people in certain levels for it to pencil financially, to have like certain work conducted by different people. And then you're artificially holding your team members at different levels, right? You're not elevating leadership because you need to have the right number and ratio of like principals and senior and whatever, where you can offload a lot of administrative, redundant, even sort of like drafting and production tasks, and allow your team members to rise in leadership to the level of their ability, and supplement that with technology is an exciting opportunity to let us work more as a collective than this like traditional hierarchical structure. And that's what we've been trying to do over time. And I think this is just going to further enable that. I do think that firms that don't invest in understanding AI and think about this in the longer term, and not just like, hey, it's a nifty tool that I can ask questions, are going to be left behind and seen as, not providing enough value to society, who is going to be adopting this in every aspect of what we do.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up, is there anything we haven't covered that you'd like to tell the listeners?
I always like to leave conversations like this, especially where we've talked about our practice, with encouragement to other firm leaders or other hopefully would be future firm leaders, that your practice doesn't have to look exactly like ours, but your practice also doesn't have to look exactly like yours. So I think that we really want to encourage everyone to imagine a world where your firm is custom built for you, and then you would find your people for whom it's also like the perfect little place for them. And I would love to see 100 different firm structures for 100 different types of architects, because I think that, when we describe our firm, often people feel like they really need to like interrogate us and get at us and like, oh, well, what about this? What about that? And it's like, if you value those things and you need that in-person interaction and you need to sketch on a table together, make your firm that way and let people who also value that come work for you. Our issue is that every firm in the country looks like that. So we need a better variety if we're going to continue to attract a better diversity of architects, which I think we can all agree makes our industry healthier and makes our industry better sustained in the long term. So we would love to see like this other weird firm that the three of us couldn't even think of, I just want folks to like really hear our story, not as I need to copy paste Fora, but like, ooh, what would be my perfect environment? And then go create that.
Well said. Well said. So, Leah, Leah, Kate, and Sarah, thank you so much for being my guest on the Anti-Architect podcast. The way you run Architects FORA is pretty special, and I enjoyed kind of learning and listening about this. It made me think about a few other things and avenues that we could go down as well. So I can't thank you all enough for being part of this.
Thank
you again, and thanks for the great questions. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. You're welcome. So to read more about Leah, Kate, and Sarah and Architects FORA, please visit them at their website, which is architectsfora.com. And then we'll post your LinkedIn as well in the show notes. So thanks again.
Thank you so much. Have a great one.
Awesome. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.